We are excited to have Karey Windbiel-Rojas presenting today on the wild world of wasps. Karey is the Associate Director for Urban and Community IPM with UC IPM and an Urban IPM Advisor for Yolo, Solano, and Sacramento counties. As Associate Director, Karey provides leadership and coordinates communication and educational efforts to address urban pest issues around homes, structures, landscapes, gardens, schools, and public areas. Thank you for joining us, Karey.
Thank you, Sherry.
You may now share your screen.
All right. Thank you so much. Today, we are going to talk about the wild world of wasps. And we got the idea to have this as a topic from previous webinars where people were asking a lot of questions about wasps. And we thought, that would be really interesting. So it was fun to put this together to share with you some of the wasp information that's out there and some cool things about wasps. I want to start by just saying that there are a ton of different wasp species out in the world. I found this picture that shows a variety of different wasp species. I'm not going to be able to cover all of them, and I'm only going to touch on a few that people might encounter or that people may or may not know of, and a couple that I found interesting. And ours is fairly short to talk about all the wasps. So let's just jump right into it. And first, I want to say that when I'm out lecturing or talking to people about wasps, the first thought that people get is, oh my God, wasps. Yes, no, they're all going to sting me. I hate them. But wasps are very misunderstood. And we'll talk about some of them today. But a lot of people think of wasps as, these flying, stinging, kind of nefarious insects that are out to sting us. And that's really not the case for the majority of wasps. There are about 30,000 species of wasps that are out in the world, and we don't encounter the majority of them. Many of them are social wasps and some are solitary. So they may live together in a nest. They may be above ground, underground, in cracks, in crevices, in various places. And so we'll touch on a few of them today. But what we want to accomplish by sharing some of this information is to sort of dispel the thought that all wasps are aggressive, because in fact, most are not going to sting people. They do sting, but what they sting and how they sting is dependent on the species and what it is they are trying to do, as we'll go over a little bit today. So let's dispel the myth that wasps are all evil and are going to be out there to sting us. All right. So some wasp basics. They are insects, so they are considered animals. They are in the class Insecta, and as insects have different orders that then distinguish them from each other, such as beetles or butterflies and moths, wasps, all wasps are in the order Hymenoptera. And in that same order are bees, like honeybees, bumblebees, other bees, as well as ants and horntails and sawflies, a bunch of things that we are not talking about today. So it's a really large order of insects. And within that order, there are different families, and I'm going to talk about a couple of them today. There's different families of wasps and hornets and mud daubers and all of these really different wasps in this group. So I mentioned that some are solitary and some are social wasps, and that depends on which group we're talking about. While they do have what we might call stingers, not all of them are meant to sting. Not all of the wasps are venomous. Some of them have these stingers, which are actually called ovipositors, that deposit an egg either on a plant surface or in another organism, as we'll go through. And only the females, if it is a stinging or an egg-laying wasp, only the females have that structure. And unlike bees, when yellowjackets sting, they can sting multiple times. And the wasps that lay eggs can use their stinger or their ovipositor several times to lay their eggs. So technically, they're perhaps not called stingers, but we'll get to that. And as we'll find out, some do bite, some bite and sting, some do not sting and do not bite. So there's a wide variety. The solitary wasps are very interesting because while they are varied in their habitat and what they do, some of the solitary wasps that kind of don't live in nests and live by themselves, maybe in holes in the ground. Some examples are mud daubers and cicada killers. They have these great hunting strategies. They hunt for their prey. Some of them will paralyze their prey with venom so that they can have their larvae feed on them. And I'm going to talk about one of those later. Some lay their eggs in their prey, some lay their eggs on top of the prey, and then the larvae feed on them. And these assassins, these solitary wasps, they will specialize in whatever prey they have evolved with. So sometimes that's spiders, sometimes it's beetles, and sometimes it's even other wasps. So we'll get into some of those in a little bit. They are fascinating, these social wasps, in how they build their nests. And you can see in the bottom picture that the nests are very geometric in their shape, and they are made by chewed plant material, wood pulp, which is essentially paper. And so we have a wasp called the paper wasp that you can see their nest built in under eaves of buildings and other structures. But even wasps that build their nests above ground or below ground still have the cells like these, where they deposit, the queen deposits her egg, and then the larvae grow in all these individual cells. So for the social wasps, they live in these complex nests, and the colonies of the wasp can number in the thousands. As they are building their nest, like a paper wasp or even an underground nest, they gradually build up the number of cells. And you can see in that top picture, that is a nest that was dug from underground. And you can just imagine how many cells are in that nest. So pretty crazy. And so the colony of social wasps, similar to bees and ants, they have a hierarchy structure. They have the queen, they have workers, and they have drones, and they all play a distinct role in their social network. So in our ecology, in the ecosystem, all the different wasps have a role. They all have a place. Some of them that we'll talk about today help us manage our pests. So some wasps are natural predators of other insects. Some do feed on decaying insect bodies or decaying plant or animal material. So they can help us with decomposition. So many wasps are scavengers. And then many of the wasps that we'll talk about today are also pollinators. And they don't get the same credit, I guess, as honeybees and other bees, because again, people often hear the word wasp and they fear them. But they, a lot of the adult stage of wasp, they fly and they feed on pollen or nectar, and thereby, pollinating different flowering plants. And then some play a role in our crop development. So we'll talk about fig wasps in a little bit too, which are critical for the development of the fig fruit. So as with anything, I hear often, why do we even have wasps? What good are ants? Why are gophers even a thing? Every organism has a role in our ecosystem, and wasps are included in that. But As I said, people do fear them. So why do we fear them? Well, sometimes we fear the unknown, or sometimes we see these scary pictures of a menacing looking wasp, and we automatically think it's, going to bite us or sting us or get in our hair or get in our soda. And when we drink our soda, we're going to get stung or bit by a yellow jacket or wasp. So there are reasons to fear being stung. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. But a lot of times people think that all wasps are aggressive, and they may or may not be, depending on the species. But some of them do have really strong nest defense behavior. And we are accustomed to seeing these kind of flying wasps around their nesting sites. But as we'll find out today, there's so many different wasps that we don't even see that are out in nature. So I'm going to start out by talking about some of the wasps as pests, and then we'll get into beneficials and then just a couple other ones in the time we have today. So many of you might be familiar with yellowjackets and paper wasps. These are the ones that I think the majority of folks envision when you say the word wasps. So yellowjackets, which are sometimes called meat bees, they are one of the groups of wasps in the order Hymenoptera, and yellowjackets belong in the family under order the Hymenoptera order Vespidae, and paper wasps and hornets and mud daubers are all in that same family. So for the two types of the two main genus of yellowjackets, we have Vespula and Dolichovespula. Don't ask me to say that again. But so yellowjackets are known for being perhaps aggressive or a bit feisty because they do defend their nest, and they may be attracted to our picnic areas or where we're sitting. And so people swat at them, which might also cause them to be more aggressive. So they are social wasps, and they live in nests. And because of their nest defense, they may exhibit these kind of defensive behaviors, especially if you are around an aerial nest or an underground nest. And that's where people might come in contact and might get stung or bit. Yellowjackets have a yellow and black stripe appearance, and different species have different patterns. But one important way to distinguish yellowjackets from honeybees is that honeybees are a little fuzzy. They have hairs, whereas the yellowjackets have smooth bodies. And there's other ways to distinguish them from other kinds of wasps. And I'm going to show you part of a video in a little bit to help you in distinguishing that. Most yellowjackets are about the size of a dime. Some wasps can be larger, but yellowjackets themselves are only 12 to 16 millimeters or so. And as I said, they can be aggressive, especially when they're defending their nests or searching or defending their food source. So when they are living in their colony as social insects, they have a term called eusocial. So they have those distinct roles that I mentioned before, where the queen is the reproductive female, and she will start a colony in the spring. The workers are sterile females that forage for food, help build the nest, and help defend the nest. And then the drones are males whose sole purpose is to mate with the queen. And so they have these very structured roles, similar to other eusocial insects like ants. Their nest structure. So I mentioned that they can have a nest that's in a tree, or an aerial nest, or underground. And so they build their nest in these hollow spaces, which could be a wall void. That could be an attic, or sometimes they build their nests in abandoned underground burrows created by squirrels or gophers. They can build their nests under eaves, especially the paper wasp, not so much the Yellowjackets, but they can, and in sheds and other areas. The nest can grow to the size of a basketball or even larger, and can contain thousands of wasps if left undisturbed and getting to the peak of their colony size. And as I mentioned before, they're made by chewed wood fibers, giving that kind of papery texture. So they're very defensive. They tend to be Yellowjackets tend to be more aggressive than other wasps. Some colonies, some areas, paper wasps can be very aggressive as well, but paper wasps are generally not known to be aggressive, whereas Yellowjackets are. And as I said before, unlike bees, they can sting multiple times. And I mentioned already that they are protecting their nest, protecting their food. So this is a way to avoid Yellowjackets, is if you know where their nest is, try to avoid that place. And definitely don't want to be stung, because they do have a sharp sting that does deliver venom, which can cause pain and swelling. And in some cases, people could be allergic to them. And they could go into anaphylactic shock if they do have an allergy to the venom. And so Yellowjackets can sting multiple times, unlike bees, because their stinger is a little different. And that is something we want to try and avoid. But they don't want to sting you either. They've got their role. They have their food foraging and their nest protection. They've got a job to do. So I want to show you a little bit of this video, which is on the UCIPM website and on our YouTube channel. Some of you may have seen it before. It's 2 minutes. I don't intend to show the whole thing, but we'll show you where you can find it. And it's a good way to distinguish between Yellowjackets, paper wasps, and other lookalikes. And hopefully you can hear the sound.
Yellowjackets, sometimes called meat bees, are aggressive when disturbed and can inflict a painful sting. Learn to recognize the difference between yellowjackets and other similar-looking insects. Yellowjackets are often confused with honeybees, syrphid flies, paper wasps, and mud daubers. Yellowjackets are less than 3/4 inch long with jagged bright yellow and dark black stripes. The most common pest species in California is the western yellowjacket, although the German yellowjacket and other species also occur. Unlike other common wasps, yellowjackets don't appear to have a narrow wasp waist, and problem species scavenge on human food and garbage, especially in late summer and fall.
All right, just wanted to show that video that you can go watch on our YouTube channel, that is linked from our Yellowjacket resource called the Pest Notes. And it's good information. We have a couple other videos. So here is our Yellowjackets and other social wasps pest notes, and we will be providing you the link to this and any other resources that we show today in the follow-up email that you all get. We might throw it in the chat a little bit later, a couple of these. But here at the top of the pest note, you can see those 3 videos distinguishing between Yellowjackets, wasp, and lookalike. That's what I just showed. And then finding and treating yellowjacket nests and how to reduce yellowjackets around your yard. So very common wasp that people know about, these few that are talked about there. But we want to move on to a different kind of wasp that you won't have seen yet, and hopefully we don't see this in California. This is called the Northern Giant Hornet. It used to be called the Asian Giant Hornet, but it was renamed last year, I think. It is the world's largest hornet, and a hornet is just a subset of wasps as a whole. They have different features, but this hornet is 1.5 to 2 inches long. So it's a really large hornet. It is currently has not been found in California. So we're just sharing the information because it's kind of fun to talk about this really large hornet, but also what it does and why we don't want it in California. So this is the picture I showed earlier, that menacing looking face that makes it look angry. But it has a large orange head with these big eyes and really big mandibles right here. And they do form large colonies underground. So similar to the Yellowjackets, they build their nest underground. And what is concerning about this one is that they destroy honeybee hives. This big mandible chops the heads off of honeybees. So we certainly don't want anything else to be harming our honeybees in California or anywhere else. It's only been found in Oregon, in the north part of Washington, not Oregon. It's been found in Washington. It was first reported in 2019, and they did some really heavy searching for them and trying to delimit any further spread. And so they have announced that the hornet has been eradicated from Washington, and they still have a program where they are keeping tabs, but we want to share that information with you because we certainly don't want this hornet to come to California because Washington is pretty close. But when the height of this information came out, a lot of people were reporting other similar look-alike wasps that they thought might be the giant hornet, because there are other wasps that do other things in the environment that, and they're also large. So we've got the European hornet, this great golden digger wasp, and a cicada killer. These are all much smaller than the giant hornet, but they're all the same kind of color and very notable. So there are many different species out there, but some are invasive and really economically important, and some are naturally occurring and they play their roles and don't really bother us in other ways. But if you do suspect that you have found a northern giant hornet, you can report it to your county ag commissioner. Here's just some information, and we'll share this too to find out more about the northern giant hornet. Again, it's not in California, so we are a little less concerned about it. But I wanted to mention it because it is such a striking wasp. So I'm going to shift gears away from those kinds of wasps that we might be concerned with because they're large and they might sting, to a really interesting kind of wasp group called Gall wasps. Gall wasps are in the scientific family Cynipidae or Cynipidae, and these are known to trigger the formation of galls on the plants that they will find as their habitat. So they cause some distortion of plant parts, usually leaves, branches, or twigs, but also can cause distortion of flowers. Sometimes they cause these really colorful looking galls. Sometimes the galls are just the same color as the leaf or the branch. But here in this picture, you can see two types of galls. We've got these cone galls and then also apple galls, which I'm going to show another picture of and their species in a moment. Oak trees tend to have a few different kinds of gall wasp that attack it. But some of these gall wasps can also attack other plants like roses or other woody ornamentals or trees. So the size, shape, and color of the gall depends on the species of wasp. And these wasps must have their host plant in order to go through their development and continue their life cycle. While some of these galls might look like they're damaging the plant and be unsightly, most of them don't cause the plant to die unless it's a young plant and it's just starting to kind of grow. But a lot of the oaks that you'll see that have these galls, they're doing just fine. They just might look, unsightly. And then some of the galls, they induce plants to secrete a lot of nectar, which can then get sticky and drippy and kind of messy. So while they don't necessarily harm the plants, they can be kind of annoying to us. So the female wasp, and again, these are really, really tiny, or maybe I didn't say that, different from the yellowjackets and mud daubers and hornets that we see and know that are a little larger. These are really, really small wasps. You probably wouldn't even notice them if you were looking at your oak tree or out looking. They're pretty small wasps. They might strike you as being a fly or a gnat. And what they do is they lay their egg in the plant material, and then as the egg hatches into a larva, the larva kind of triggers a chemical release of the plant that trick the plant into making a gall. And then that gall is where the larva then develops and can go through its life. The gall is both a protectant and can be, a source of food. So once the larva of the wasp then pupates, it will exit that gall as an adult and go and do the same thing. Some of these gall producers, they mate, the male and female mate, and some of them do not mate. The females are what's called parthenogenic, and they don't need a male in order to reproduce. So this is just one kind of gall wasp maker. This is called the two-horned gall wasp, and it makes this little tiny ball wasp with two little ears. But this one is the oak apple gall, which is caused by this specimen, the Androcus californicus. And then these are two really common oak galls that you might see: the spine turban gall, caused by Antron douglasii, and the oak cone gall, same genus as the oak apple gall, but it makes a different shape because it is a different wasp of a different species. And so if you have any oak trees, or when you're out going for a walk, or any kind of arboretum that might have oaks, you are very likely to see these galls. And there are other oak galls that I haven't talked about yet. But the other one I do want to mention, because around July and August in many areas in California, we will see the jumping oak gall wasp. And I'm going to see if I can put this. Oh, I can't. I will share that link with you. But what happens is this little wasp lays her eggs in the leaf of an oak. The larva creates the induces the plant to create this gall, and they're just tiny little beads. And so the larvae live in here, and once the temperature gets hotter and the galls dry, they drop to the ground. And when they're on the ground, the larva is in the pupal stage, and they will jump. So it's like the ground is moving. So I'll find this link before we're done today and post it in the chat, where you can see it's just like a 4-second looping video, and you can see all the little galls jumping on the ground. And if you have an oak tree, or there's one near you, and you've noticed this, that's what it is. It's a gall wasp, and it doesn't really hurt the tree, but it happens every year. And the jumping oak gall wasp must have the oak tree to reproduce and go through its life cycle. And it's really kind of cool. And if you've ever sat there and watched them and listened, it sounds like Rice Krispies in milk. It's kind of cool. Okay, moving on to some other wasps. And I want to mention one of those economically important wasps, which is the fig wasp. And we've gotten some questions about this before. And so I want to mention that some of these wasps are economically important for the development of our crops. And like I said, some of them are important pollinators. But the fig wasp is critical for the formation of the fig fruit. So there are 750 to 900 species of solitary fig wasp that are responsible for pollinating the 750 to 900 species of figs. I couldn't quite find the right figure, so I'm giving a range. But each fig wasp species has one species of fig tree that they use for their reproduction. And so as these are solitary wasps, they don't nest in the ground, they don't, form, those different cells. They might, reproduce together in a fig, but it's not necessarily known as a nest. So these are solitary wasps. So each fig will pollinate only one species of fig tree, and it's this really mutual relationship that has developed over the years. So this is a really good way to showcase the coevolution of a plant and an insect that has a mutual benefit for both, so that the tree can produce the fruit, which is important for, you know, birds and other animals and people. And without each other, they couldn't exist. The tree needs the wasp and the wasp needs the tree. So a generalized picture for how this works, and again, this is just one picture of a fig wasp. There are many different species that have many different individual characteristics. And I grabbed this picture from the Encyclopedia Britannica online. There's many versions of this drawing, but the female will enter the fig through the opening at the bottom called the ostiole, and she will enter in an unripe fig and go into the area in the middle, which is called the synconium. And there's a lot of technical terms here. This is just terms that have been given to the way these figs grow. And the flowers of figs are actually on the inside of the fig itself. So the female wasp lays her eggs within the flowers, and then the flower ovary has the wasp larva inside this kind of gall-like structure. The larva will go through its larval stage, feeding on the portions of the flower, and then it will pupate, and then the adult fig will emerge. And there will be a male in there too, so that they can mate, and they will either come out, right? So the newly developed fig that has the wings will exit from the not quite developed fig fruit, and the female and the male may stay in there and die, and the enzymes of the fig will break them down. And basically the fig fruit will eat the bodies of the insect and any other underdeveloped fig larva or pupa that didn't fully develop. So what people really want to know about this is, are you eating dead wasps in your figs? And the answer is no, because those enzymes within the fig digest any insect parts. We get that question from our vegan friends. So the whole ecosystem is really quite fascinating for how the figs develop from these wasps. But go ahead and eat your figs, you're fine. So I want to talk about some other wasps and kind of close out with these beneficial and parasitic wasps. I mentioned that the big wasp is an economically important wasp, but so are these parasitic wasps, because they help with our pest control. And parasitic wasps, there are thousands of different species, and you may know of these, but you may never see them. You may had no idea that there were parasitic wasps that help us with our pest control, but we want to showcase just a few of them to give you some examples of what is naturally occurring out there. Some of them you can purchase, and some you cannot purchase because they can't very easily be reared in a lab, but they are still naturally occurring and they are doing pest control for us. So these parasitic wasps, which we also call parasitoids, because a true parasite does not kill its host. Parasitoid, oid means like, so it's a parasite like. So these parasitoids, these parasitic wasps, they do kill their host. And again, just like the fig wasp, these parasitic wasps must have their host in order to go through their life cycle and develop. So this picture here is showing you generally how this works with an aphid as the host. but there are scale insect hosts and caterpillar hosts and whitefly hosts, and I'm going to talk about this. But generally what happens with these parasitic wasps is the female wasp uses that stinger, the ovipositor, to lay her egg inside, or for some species on top of the host. In this case of an aphid, the female lays her egg in the aphid. So the female lays her egg in the aphid, and you can see that little dot right there, that's depicting the egg. The egg of the wasp then hatches and becomes a larva inside the aphid. The aphid is still feeding on the plant, but the larva of the wasp is feeding on the aphid from the inside. I hope everyone's having their lunch right now. So the larva is feeding on the aphid from the inside, which ends up killing the aphid. But insects have an exoskeleton, and so the skeleton of the aphid remains on the plant even though it's now dead. And the larva of the wasp, having eaten all of the aphid from the inside, now pupates. And once it's finished with its pupal cycle, it will emerge out of the back of the aphid as an adult wasp, and it will go on to eat and mate and die and do this all over again. So there are many, many different wasps that go through this, and they all have an individual host that they are associated with. There are some parasitic flies as well, but today we're talking about wasps. So what this actually looks like in real life is that the pest insect, once it's parasitized by that wasp, it tends to change color. And the life cycle of whatever insect is attacked by the parasitic wasp depends on the species. Some species of parasitic wasps attack their host's egg stage of their life cycle. Some will attack the larval stage or the immature stage, and some will attack the adult stage. So it really depends on the species that we're talking about, and I can't go over all of them because, again, there are many, many different ones out there. So in the case of this scale insect, this is a healthy scale, and this discolored one is a parasitized scale. This species of parasitic wasp attacks the egg of its host. So these light colored eggs are not parasitized, and this dark egg is parasitized by the wasp. Here is that aphid parasite where you can see once the aphid dies, its exoskeleton stays there, remains on the plant, but it's got a wasp growing on its inside. So it bloats a little bit, and it gets discolored from its normal aphid color if it were, unparasitized. And we refer to these as mummies because they're basically, just sort of frozen in time, if you will. And then this is the wasp that emerged out of the back of that aphid host, and it makes these circular, almost perfect holes, and it's really fascinating. This other one at the bottom here, this is a caterpillar parasitoid, and what I mentioned on this last slide is that, or maybe I didn't mention it, that the females usually lay one egg per host for many of these aphid and scale and whitefly parasites. But in the case of some caterpillars and their associated parasitoid, some species lay multiple eggs. So in this caterpillar, multiple eggs were laying into the body, and each one of these white things is the pupal case of the wasp that has sort of emerged out of the larva. And now all of those white things are going to contain an adult wasp once that life stage is entered. So the parasites that have multiple eggs in its host are known as gregarious parasitoids, meaning they group together. All right. So some examples of these beneficials. This one species, Incarcia formosa, is a parasitic wasp of whiteflies. And so the female wasp will lay her egg into the nymphal stage of the whitefly. So this white one has not been parasitized. This black one has been parasitized, and then this shell is where the parasitic wasp has already emerged out of the nymphal stage, and you can kind of see that opening there. The adults may also feed on whiteflies, and this is what the adult looks like. It's just a tiny, tiny little wasp that you may never actually see because they are so small. So trichogramma is another very common species of parasitic wasp, and they have different hosts depending on the species. But again, this is a really, really small wasp, and some will lay their eggs in certain eggs. So this adult wasp is laying its egg in a codling moth egg. This one is a different caterpillar egg. So different species of wasp, different host species. And when they are parasitized, they will change color, like I showed in that other slide. And the adults may also feed on the eggs as well. Another common genus of parasitic wasp is Aphidius. So they feed on or attack aphids, and different species will attack different species of aphids, but you can see all of these have been parasitized because you can see that exit hole. And here is the female. She kind of arches her back and targets the host. Her stinger here is in the body of the host, laying her egg. And the common question I get from this is, how many eggs does a female lay at one time or in her lifetime? And it does vary by species, but a female can lay several hundred eggs if she's healthy and the host is there. So as you can see with this picture, the female laid an egg in pretty much every aphid that was here. And that can really, really reduce the pests that our plants might have. And since these are naturally occurring, this happens in our agricultural fields, and it happens in our home and garden plants too. So not only do we have this in our home gardens, but our agricultural industry relies on these natural enemies or beneficial insects to help us with pest control. And the farmers and their pest control advisors will scout for the presence of these beneficial insects, and they will adjust their pesticide use if they have a lot of biological control happening in the fields. So I explained how that all goes with the aphid. Now, just in case you're thinking, oh, well, I knew that, that's really cool. Even the parasite can have a parasitic wasp. So that's something called hyperparasitism, that there are these parasitic wasps that attack parasitic wasps. So I borrowed this picture from North Carolina State, that here is a wasp that it's laying its egg inside the pupal case of this wasp that had just emerged from this hornworm caterpillar. So here's the host, here's all the parasitic wasp cocoons, and then here's a parasite that's going to lay its eggs in all of these cocoons. And so it's crazy, all of this happening, and it's all naturally occurring, part of the ecosystem, and it's just fascinating. And I can't even tell you how many hundreds of species of hyperparasitoids there are out there. We just don't have time today. But I do want to point out our Natural Enemies Gallery. If you haven't seen this resource, you can find information about these parasitoids, the ones that we have in California and that are common. And we'll make sure you have the link to that. But following that link will give you a list of the common name and the scientific name. And then you can follow along to the page, which describes both the parasitoid and also what it attacks, its life cycle, how long it takes to develop. Some of these take, maybe a month, some take several months. It depends on the species and the host and the environment. And then also we have a resource for how to encourage these parasitic wasps to come to your garden, is you can plant insectary plants. And insectary plants are really just sources of pollen and nectar that the adult stage of the wasp can use as an energy source, and then the female can go find their host insect and lay their eggs. So those resources are freely available on the UCIPM website. The last beneficial parasitic wasp I want to mention, which we don't have this information on our website because it's really not considered a plant pest, is the tarantula hawk. And I know that people have known about this pest before, or excuse me, this wasp. These are very large and colorful wasps. They are kind of an iridescent blue-green, and they have these orange wings. They are parasites of tarantulas. So they are parasitic wasps. They're not actually hawks. But what happens is the female lays an egg. When she goes to lay her egg in a tarantula, her venom actually paralyzes the tarantula as the host, and that renders the tarantula motionless so that the larva of the wasp can hatch from the egg and then feed on the tarantula from the inside. So just like it's happening with the aphid, however, this wasp actually has venom that paralyzes its host. And you don't want to be stung by one of these because it really, really does hurt. So appreciate them from afar. And then you can see that the female here is feeding on pollen and nectar from a plant. So very similar to what I just described in those very, very small parasitoids. Lastly, I want to talk, just point you to this resource before we go to questions. And I'm not going to play this video, but we'll make sure that you have the link. Our colleagues, Sherry and Lindsay, shared this with me yesterday, that this is an indoor pest, the clothes moth. And even the clothes moth has a parasitic wasp that attacks it. And I watched this video this morning. It's fascinating that you can actually have an indoor parasitic wasp that you can release to attack clothes moths that might be attacking your clothes. And if you've never thought of or looked at clothes moths, this is a really interesting video that is a little disgusting, but also fascinating. So I'll leave you with that thought. And that is it. This is a naturally occurring wasp called a giant ichneummonid. This is my child and their friend. We are up near Tahoe, and this wasp just landed on the friend. This is the long ovipositor. It is not a stinging wasp, but this scared all the other campers because, right, they see a stinger, they think it's coming for them. But as you now know, there's so many different reasons that wasps are out there, and it's not just to sting you. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Karey. You're discussing the diversity of wasps and opening our eyes to their wild world. It's amazing.